So now we're coming to an end of our discussion of topics in the philosophy of religion under the rubric of the greatest conceivable being. Notice that we have considered the application of both theoretical and practical rationality to settling issues about the existence of the greatest conceivable being, about what is commonly intuitively referred to as God. Now, notice that we haven't settled anything definitively one way or the other. So this class, what you've seen of it thus far, is a little bit different from your math or engineering or chemistry classes in which you get fairly definite solutions to problems that you're confronted with. Whereas in philosophy, we often don't come up with definitive solutions, but I'm hoping that we'll still have made some progress, because these are questions that any thinking, any reflective person is going to be concerned with, and we'll continue to discuss such questions throughout the rest of the semester. And I'm not going to try to give you definitive answers, but rather try to give you tools for thinking about these questions in more systematic, better analyzed, thoroughgoing ways that allow you to not just have opinions, but to justify those points of view with reasons, and to consider how other people might have opinions that are worth taking seriously, that you can use to build on and enhance, perhaps in some cases modify, your own. So the fact that we have not come to conclusions yet about any of these questions does not show that it's all just back and forth, it's all just bandying about subjective opinions. Rather, these are opinions about topics that matter, where it's not at all clear that scientific investigation or historical inquiry or empirical investigation under a microscope or mathematical proof is going to answer these questions, and yet the questions that matter. That does not mean that therefore we should just sit down and choose the point of view that seems most pleasant or appealing, but rather we should continue to work and try to justify our opinions as best we can to make them not just dogma, but things that are much more like reasonable points of view. So you've got options among theism, atheism, and agnosticism, and part of your project will be to think about your position about questions in the philosophy of religion, then to ask yourself, where do I stand, and more importantly, how can I justify my standing in the way that I would like to or think is most reasonable? How can I turn my inclinations, my gut instinct, into something that's more like a justification and not just a cause, going back to our discussion of how to assess arguments. Notice also that in the process that we're going to be sharpening our analytical skills. That'll include learning how to read carefully, look at the arguments of authors and break them down into lines of reasoning that we can formulate in terms of premises and a conclusion if at all possible. Take your own line of reasoning and see whether you can put it under a kind of analytical microscope. That's often a very good way of determining just how cogent that line of reasoning is. And notice also that we've been, in the course of our discussion thus far, thinking about touching on various aspects of issues of right and wrong. The problem of evil includes the notion of moral evil, which depends upon the idea that we've got free agents who do what they know to be wrong. We've got suffering, we've got compassion, we've got mercy, and we also have the example of freedom of action, and those are all bound up together into a topic that goes under the rubric of ethics. That'll be what we turn to as our next major discussion in this course.